Chair Lesh, we have House File 1061. And Chair Lesh, I believe your motion is to have House File 1061 be re-referred to the Transportation Committee.
I suppose that's right. Okay. So yes, Mr. Chair, that is my motion.
Very well. Representative Lesh, your bill is before us with a motion to be re-referred to the Transportation Committee. Representative Lesh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think my testifiers can speak to this much better than I can. However, I would note that this bill stops driver's license suspensions only when the only violation is failure to pay traffic tickets. It eliminates the additional suspension period after paying a ticket for driving after suspension, so people who pay their fine can get back to work, and it maintains a collection process. It also, I would note, does not impact suspensions for DWI, reckless driving, or habitual offenders. But noting, Mr. Chair, that my testifiers can speak to this better than me, I'd ask you to permit them to speak to this.
Very well, Chair Lesh. And whoever wants to start can begin. Just introduce yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Leah Jackson. I originally grew up in Otsego, and now live in Minneapolis. I'm a server, bartender, and a dance instructor through St. Paul Parks and Rec. Thanks for the chance for me to tell you about how the driving suspensions have caused significant impact on me, both financially and occupationally. So this starts back 2014 in October. I was taking a left turn at a green light yield, and I pulled out into the intersection like I was taught how to do, and I was waiting for the break in traffic, giving me the time to turn. But as the light turned yellow, everyone started speeding up and didn't give me that time. So then I was sitting in the middle of the intersection until I was able to go when the light was already red. I was pulled over immediately and then told that that is illegal. I was given a ticket for obstructing traffic and intersection gridlock. And originally that was a $135 ticket. And I was 20 at the time. I just got a new job at a store as a store manager. I was actually in Rochester on training, so I wasn't even home. I was driving back to the hotel when that happened. And then I just moved into my very own apartment for the first time by myself. And I hadn't gotten a first paycheck yet, and I had to save up for rent. I had a lot more responsibility than I had ever been used to. So I didn't, I was gonna wait a little bit to pay my ticket. So just to get my feet on the ground. But then I didn't know that there was a time limit on it. So the following February, I was pulled over and told that my license was suspended. And I had been given the driving after suspension ticket, which if I remember was like $280 something at the time. I ended up paying a lot less, but that's what it would have been. And then I was never notified of that suspension. And since I had just moved, but my driver's license was still my parents' address because that was my mailing address, and I never got a notification there or my apartment. So I had no idea that I was suspended until I was pulled over. So now about 500 in fines. So I knew in February I was, okay, when I get my tax return, that's when I'm gonna pay everything back. I was actually able to go, hold on. So I still had to wait a little bit because I didn't have the money, so I kept driving. So part of my responsibilities at work as a store manager was bank runs, and then I had a couple different delivery responsibilities that I had as a tuxedo and prom store. So within about 2 weeks of that first driving after suspension ticket, I got 2 more, one for driving to the bank and one for driving to my second job as a dance instructor. So at that point, I had to ask friends to drive me to the bank. I had to ask friends to drive me to work, just because I didn't have that much time between jobs to take the bus. It was like a 2-hour bus ride, so that wasn't an option for me at the time. And then, on days when I wasn't a store manager, it was just very stressful because, I was in trouble. That was stressful, and then I could never really visit my family, which lived about 45 minutes away. So then finally, when my tax return came back, I actually went to court and talked to a hearing officer, and those 3 driving after suspension fines went from 900 to about 600. So I was really grateful for that at the time. But I paid it off and was able to get my license back. But that's not where, the problems ended. So because of those tickets, my auto insurance company had dropped me as a client. And after companies and companies of trying to get quotes and stuff, either they didn't accept me at all or nothing less for $1,000 a month. So luckily, now this time I was a server, so I was connected through a broker, through a customer. His son was actually an insurance broker, and he was able to get me insurance for $650, which was very happy at the time because that's what, $350 less than what I was looking at. So now it's 4.5 years later, and I'm finally down to only $200 a month, which to me is actually pretty great, considering $650 is what I was paying at the time. But now after these 4.5 years, all of the fees and fines that I've paid, and then all of the insurance that I've paid, it's just under about $16,000 that I've paid just because of that one ticket that would have been avoided if I just had a little bit more time to pay it. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ms. Jackson, for your testimony. I don't think Franz Kafka could have written a more concise tale of a tale. Representative Lesh, Chair Lesh.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, my name is Mary Ellen Hang. I am the Minneapolis criminal deputy in the Minneapolis City Attorney's Office. I have been a misdemeanor prosecutor for 21 years. I started in the office in 1997. Our office, we only do misdemeanor prosecutions, adults. The county attorney does the felonies and the juvenile work. And I am here to testify on behalf of my office, and I've had communications with the St. Paul City Attorney's Office as well, and I know they support this bill and have worked with us in partner. But I'm here to testify in support of this bill. I can just tell you from my years of experience that tying driving privileges to financial obligations just simply doesn't work. We have groups of people that are simply, no matter what we do, they're just not going to take responsibility for their tickets. And yes, this law is going to assist them, but I think that's a very small group of people that we encounter. But the truth is that we encounter a lot more people that simply want to do the right thing and don't have the financial means to do it. And traffic tickets, if you aren't really familiar with the system, as you can see from Leah's story, not only can it be really daunting and a confusing and complicated process, but they can add up very, very quickly. We are a proud partner of the driver diversion program, which we've used for many, many years now to help people like Leah get their license back by paying off their tickets. And I have seen people apply for that program who have $8,000, $10,000 worth of outstanding tickets. One ticket can quickly balloon from the normal fine of a couple $100 into $700 or $800 by the time you tack on late fees, delinquency fees, collection fees. And all the while, people have to continue to drive because they need to get to work in order to make money, support their family, and pay off their fine. So we've just created this vicious, vicious cycle. And the other thing I've learned is that when someone doesn't have a valid driver's license, they often don't have valid insurance. And for me as a prosecutor, what I want on the roads are valid, licensed, good drivers. And right now, we have thousands of drivers that are driving around unlicensed and uninsured. And this law does not do anything to people who are out there driving recklessly, driving under the influence, who continue to violate laws habitually. I fully support revoking and suspending licenses for conduct. What I cannot support anymore is simply suspending licenses for people who simply are just too poor to pay. And we have to make a change to make the roads safer. In my office, 20 to 30% of our caseload is spent on people coming into court on driving after suspension, driving after revocation tickets. I don't think that that's a very good use of our legal resources when we have other cases, the repeat drunk driver, the hit and runs, the domestic assaults, the weapons cases. Those are the cases I would like to see my attorneys focus their time on, not the person who is driving to their third job because they don't have public transportation that works well for their schedule, simply because they couldn't afford to pay off one traffic ticket that they got. So I fully support this bill. I think it's the right time to make this change, and I think it will, in fact, make the roads safer. So thank you.
Thank you, Deputy City Attorney Haig. And we also have I believe Jeanette Berner,
Yes. Good afternoon,
welcome to the
Mr.
committee.
Chair, members of the committee. I apologize for some of you who already heard this last week, so it's going to be a little redundant. But my name is Jeanette Berner. As I indicated, I'm the first assistant public defender in Hennepin County. The Public Defender's Office in the state of Minnesota is the largest criminal defense firm in the state of Minnesota. We represent 57% of all criminal defense cases in the state and approximately 61% of them in Hennepin County. Public defender clients who are eligible are clients who are charged with criminal offenses and fall below the federal poverty guidelines. For a family of 4, that's a $24,000 income. For an individual, it's a $12,000 annual income. But the reality is that our clients look much different than that for the most part. Many of the people who I have represented in my 25 years of practice are homeless or between housing, are unemployed or between employment, and are frankly just destitute. The reality is that in this state, particularly in outstate Minnesota, you need to have a license to be able to work, to be able to provide for your family. I think in the Twin Cities, we're more fortunate in that we have a public transportation system and the ability to quickly use an Uber or a Lyft, but the same can't be said for many of my colleagues in outstate Minnesota and the clients who they serve. If you are poor, the suspension is dramatic. The amount of money that you owe is more money than you can get in a month to provide for your family. Most of the tickets, as indicated, are about $130, and we're not even going into all the other surcharges and fines and fees. And as I indicated, many of my clients live on less than that a week. I think it creates a tremendous disparity between people who have means and people who do not. And it goes without saying that this has a tremendous impact on communities of color. I think it's pretty well known that you're more likely to be stopped by law enforcement if your license is suspended. There are thousands of hours that we spend, and Ms. Heng indicated, on these suspension cases. And public defenders would like to be able to dedicate their time to more serious cases. I think you're well aware, I'm sure you've heard from Mr. Ward and Mr. Kyer about our caseloads and our funding, and we would like to be able to focus our time and energy on cases that require our time and energy. That's not to say that we dismiss these cases and we don't care, we do, but it takes a tremendous amount of our resources, and if you heard her numbers of the cases that come into the system, we're paralleling our representation on those cases. I would conclude by telling you that this is a national trend. We are sort of last in line to do something about this. In Washington, the state of Washington, they stopped suspending driver's license for unpaid tickets in 2012. In California, they stopped in 2017. Mississippi stopped suspending the driver's license for these tickets in December of 2017. And most recently, a Tennessee federal court followed suit and declared that collecting debt from an indigent debtor is not a rational basis for revoking a license. No rational creditor wants his debtor to be sidelined from productive economic life or less able to hold a job or cover other competing living expenses. And they conclude, the loss of one's ability to drive compromises a person's capacity for economic self-sufficiency. You cannot underestimate the value of a driver's license in our society, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Public Defender Berner. We do have several questions. There also is a A1 amendment. We'll see if someone wants to move that. But in the meantime, I have Representative Grasso and Representative Long. Representative Grasso.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I guess just before your first testifier there. You said your license was still addressed as your parents' residence?
Yes,
Ms. Jackson.
yes, it was.
Representative Grasso.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And, so I guess my question is, as far as the fine goes, how long ago was this? Was 4 years or five?
Ms. Jackson.
It was 4.5 years ago when I originally got the first ticket in October of 2014.
Representative Grasso.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I guess why didn't you ask your folks for the change to help you with that citation? It would have saved you, like you said, about $16,000.
Ms. Jackson.
Well, family dynamic wasn't for me to be asking them for money.
Senator Wilson.
It was, I did it all. I did everything by myself.
Okay, all right. I've heard this,
Senator Wilson.
thank you, Mr. Chair. I've heard your story, I believe it was last session as well, in this session now a couple of times, and I've just kind of curious, because that's what, if my daughter at that age had received a citation, and needed some help, would have gladly done it. And hindsight being 20/20, I guess maybe you'd have found, you're thinking you should have found a friend or somebody that would spot you the money so that you could avoid, not knowing what was coming, you could have avoided a heck of a lot of headache, wouldn't you?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Jackson, I suspect, like most of us, we learn the hard way sometimes, and,
Yeah.
you know, but please, if you wish to respond. Representative Grasso?
Sorry, was there a question?
Go ahead.
Oh,
Okay. I'm sorry, you done, Representative?
Yeah, I'm done with the young lady.
Okay.
I had a couple more questions for the other testifiers, if I may.
Please.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson.
Mr. Chair.
Representative Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I, I mean, not all families are in a situation where a family could help.
Representative Dean, why don't we hold that to, I see you are on the list, and you'll have an opportunity to express that. Representative Grasso.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. County Attorney, you said, you made the statement that there are just some groups that just aren't going to take responsibility for their citations. And also followed that with, we're probably going to be helping them to continue to be irresponsible. Is that really what we want to do with this?
City Attorney Haag.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. What I meant by that statement is I do think, I see people come into court all the time and, they don't show up. And, they don't care that they have a bench warrant out there. They're going to just do their thing. And we do see that in the system. What I would say to that is that right now, those people are having a suspended license because they're not paying their fines. And it's not deterring their behavior. They're still probably out there driving. They're still not coming to court. And so the number of people that we're going to benefit by making this change, people that want to truly be responsible and simply don't have the means to do it, I think in an ideal world, everyone would step up and take responsibility, but that's just not reality. And so while it may allow people to not lose their driving privilege, there will be consequences still. They will have the collection piece of it, and that may or may not impact them depending on their ability. But I think while there may be a small percentage of people that, will now be able to drive legally and still ignore their tickets, the number of people that we're going to help, I think, is more important than that small group that simply, never show up for court, don't take any responsibility. I don't know, short of, holding them in jail until the case is resolved, which, we're trying to change that practice. I think there's always going to be that small group, but I think the good that this bill will do will far outweigh the fact that there are going to be a few that are going to take advantage of this change.
Representative Grasso.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And as far as that goes, I like the idea, and I do believe there are things in place through the courts for people that have, who are indigent, what is the word? Who do not have the means to pay it right away or upfront, that they will work it out with them, that they can make payments or installments on these things. Is that not still a practice?
Mr. Chair, members of the
Attorney
committee, yes. You have lots of options when you get a traffic ticket. They're what's called payable offenses, and the state court has deemed certain misdemeanor offenses that you can basically reduce to a petty misdemeanor if you want to pay a set fine and dollar amount, and that includes all the surcharges and whatnot. And if you have the means to do that and you're not concerned about any collateral consequences, you can go on your computer and you can just simply pay the fine. The people that we're talking about don't have the full fine amount, so their only option is to either come to see a hearing officer in Hennepin or Ramsey County first and try to get that fine reduced or get some ability to work that fine off, or they have to come to court and see a prosecutor and plea bargain that case down. And again, you know, that takes them away from jobs where often they don't have paid sick time. You know, it forces people to, again, make really hard choices of, do I take the time off of work to come and try to get a reduced fine, or do I just go to work and not worry about? So yes, there is the ability, and I think, you know, as a prosecutor, I certainly try to take all circumstances into account and give a fine that I think is going to give a meaningful consequence based on income. Not all prosecutors do that, though. Some prosecutors, I would imagine, don't have to plea bargain. I have to in my office. We're doing, you know, 17,000 cases a year, and by the sheer volume, we have to make deals, and we have to decide when that's appropriate and when we stick to our guns. And certainly on these cases, these are the kind of cases that we do plead down and we negotiate the fines because we have to in order to spend our time on the more serious offenses. But I think the fact is, these people still have to take time off of work. They have to come in, they have to sit through a morning calendar, all to get that process in place. And again, it takes away from their ability to work at these jobs, and I think it's just better not to put them in that position in the first place.
Representative Grassl, we do have a long list of your colleagues also have questions, but please
Okay.
proceed.
So I guess, you know, I like the idea, Representative Lesh. I like the idea, you know, to help people, and that's what I always try to do as a deputy myself, is to help the people that I encountered. But to reward irresponsibility with nothing, with no fines or anything like that, you know, that's a little harder thing to swallow. Mr. Chair, just one more for the defense,
Representative Grassl.
just quickly.
Objection asked and answered.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want to answer? My apologies.
City Attorney Haig, or I'm sorry, who are we?
Did you, I didn't.
Oh,
Representative Grassl,
Oh, I thought
you can proceed
Representative Lesh
with your-
had one more thing.
No. With your question.
You know, it's, in listening to the one statement you made about people of color being more likely to be stopped, I'll have to agree to disagree with you on that one, because as a patrol deputy myself, I never looked at the color of a person's skin. It was the conduct that caused me to make those traffic stops. And working a lot of night shifts, I can't see who's in that vehicle. So to make a broad statement as law enforcement does this, I'll have to disagree with you on that one.
Public
No, if I
Defender
might.
Berner.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's a little broader than that, and I really respect what you're saying. I think it has a lot to do with socioeconomic circumstances, and that community of colors, particularly in Hennepin County, are poorer, and poorer people are not able to pay their fines and fees, and therefore their licenses are suspended. And so you know that you can run that plate not knowing who's in the car, right, to your point. And if you're suspended, it's a basis to pull you over, and therefore it does have an indirect impact. So I'm not casting aspersions or saying there's a motive, and I'm not trying to open up that can of worms to make sure we all are here for the next 3 hours. But, you know, and I know it would, but I think it's fair to say just logistically, it does have, it's proven statistically to have an impact on communities of color, and that's my point.
Very well. Thank you, Representative Grassl. Representative Long and then Representative Dean.
But I wasn't done yet. No.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be brief so we can move along. I just was going to mention to the first testifier, thank you for sharing the story. That I think it's always difficult to share stories like that, but it's a really important example. And you were in a tough position, which was that you needed to work to make money. You needed to drive to work, and it was actually part of your job to drive, right? And so you were put in a really tough spot that you had to drive to make money to pay back your ticket, but by doing that, you were incurring even more fines. So that was putting you in a really impossible situation to be able to do that. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, and also mention that you're not alone and you're not unique. There was a study done last year that 57% of Americans couldn't make a $500 emergency payment if it came up. So you're actually speaking for a majority of Americans and not being able to make a payment for an emergency, bill that comes due. And a lot of that 57%, I would bet, don't have a parent they could call or a friend they could call to be able to get $500 in an emergency basis, or $900 as the fees built up. So just wanted to thank you for being present and sharing your story, and I think you represent a lot of people who are in this downward spiral through no fault of their own, or through a fault that they want to pay, no fault that they're poor, and they want to take action on paying their ticket, but often aren't able to. So thank you to the bill sponsor for bringing this forward.
Indeed, well said. Ms. Jackson, one of the, I think, powerful things of the state legislature in Minnesota, I can't speak for other states, is that we do transparently open up our deliberations during this period of our legislative session so we can hear directly from people of all views who are directly impacted by our laws. And so putting a face on the law is critically important to all of us here in the legislature. Thank you for offering that opportunity to put a face on the issues that this law is seeking to address. Representative Dean and Representative Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and also thank you, Ms. Jackson, for your testimony. We have a terrible system. When people are in financial difficulties and they aren't able to pay a small fine, their lives can be totally upended. And I don't know why we do this. I don't know why we criminalize poverty, because we do. If someone gets a fine and they can't pay it, the next thing you know, their license is suspended. They can't pay that fine. We want them to work. We want them to do all the things that they're trying to do, but they're starting from an extra 30, 40 yards back. And it almost makes it impossible. And, we can talk about law enforcement and how they pull people over and all those other things. Clearly, if you're driving a suspended license, that's cause. But oftentimes, people get pulled over for equipment violations. And people that get new cars every 3 years tend not to have equipment violations. It tends to be people that are driving 10, 15-year-old cars. Just, by the way, I'm breaking the law right now. One of my headlights is out. So I fear, no, this is serious. I fear in my neighborhood when I drive there, because if I was living somewhere else, I probably wouldn't have an issue with that. But I live in North Minneapolis. And it's possible tonight that when I go home, I'll get pulled over because I have a headlamp that's out. Now, I'm going to be at a huge advantage from a lot of the other people in my community because the officer is going to see that I'm white, and it will probably be handled very, very differently. And we can talk about who gets pulled over. I mean, I've lived on the north side almost 20 years. I've driven down streets sometimes 5, 6, 7 times a day, some of the busiest streets in North Minneapolis, and I've never gotten pulled over. And this isn't the first time my headlight's been out. So I think that we know that poor communities are impacted in very, very different ways, and that we really need to move beyond criminalizing people being poor in this insidious downward spiral of fines and fees and fines on top of fees on fines on top of fees. So I think this is definitely a bill we should move forward, and we should stop making people's lives harder and start making it a little bit better for them.
Thank you, Representative Dean. Representative Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll be brief. And I, too, want to thank Ms. Jackson for your testimony. I, as a city council member in Richfield, had a constituent who had a very similar issue, trapped in this cycle. And I know they would be grateful for you sharing your story and raising up this issue. And it is a cycle of folks racking up fines, needing to drive to work. And there was some mention of just sort of the collateral weight for our public safety systems. Our police department in Richfield knew this individual was driving without a license, would see them and felt compelled to pull them over. They were also, I think they would be grateful for us looking at this issue and changing the system, which it just strikes me as the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and again and expecting a different result. And we just don't really have a practical system here to deliver accountability and justice. So I think this bill is a helpful nod in the right direction. So thank you.
Thank you. Representative Howard, we have Representative Johnson, Considine, O'Neill, and then we have an A1 amendment. I want to see if anyone wants to author that, and then we'll proceed from there. Representative Johnson.
Mr. Chair, first question, just wondering with the Public Defender's Office, which traffic-related offenses did the Public Defender's Office assist with? Was it just speeding, or did they have to get to a reckless, careless DWI in that area?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative
Public
Johnson.
Defender Berner, and we also do have the State Public Defender. Mr.
Would you like to
Ward
take it,
available,
Mr.
who can
Ward?
help with that as well.
My boss has given me permission to answer this. We represent all misdemeanor crimes for which the person appears in court. So if a person has a payable offense, which could be a misdemeanor, and they elect to pay it online, then we don't get involved in that. But if they do schedule a court appearance, we represent them. So anybody who's facing a loss of liberty, incarceration, so that's a misdemeanor, that's punishable by 90 days, a gross misdemeanor by a year, and a felony more than a year, our representation kicks in.
Representative Johnson.
Mr. Chair, thank you very much. I just want to let people know that if it is a misdemeanor or higher, not a speeding ticket or anything like that, but if it's a misdemeanor or higher, the Public Defender's Office is there to help if they qualify. And for the prosecutor, I know in my county and the counties I've worked in, I've been to courts in a number of different counties. And all the prosecutors, whether it's city or county, they always plea bargain whenever they can. And if somebody comes in and has a situation that they need assistance, in my area, the county attorneys has no problem working with them. Unfortunately, the state went to a system where it was a central payment system. And that system was very messed up. I know a couple of my friends who had their license suspended, and they had the documentation they paid because the system didn't notify the court system. They had to pay their reinstatement fees to get it back. The reason I found out about it, law enforcement at one time, I don't know if it's still done, they're sent a list of suspended drivers every year, every month. It might be every week or every month in their neighborhoods for DWIs and stuff like that. So the county attorneys and the city prosecutors do work with the people if they have issues. We had a very robust conversation about this issue in judiciary. And the biggest issue that they're having with, and even the public defenders and even some of the judges admit, it's the surcharges. They cannot be waived. Our surcharges are more than a lot of times, sometimes double what the fines are. And that's an issue we do need to work on. But the last question I actually have, I'll let whoever wants to answer this. The issue is, and they talked about it, there's just a few people that never pay their fines and their tickets. They don't contact the courts to make arrangements for payments. And that's just a phone call to the prosecutor, and they can make arrangements for the court to pay the fines. It's real easy to do. I know people have done it numerous times. The issue is these people that never take care of it. I understand the meaning of this bill, and I have no problem with it, except for the fact that these people can get, technically, they can have 100 moving violations, and the way this is written, if they don't pay them, nothing happens. They could have 100 speeding tickets, nothing happens until they finally pay them. Then their license could be suspended because they have more than 4 violations in 12 months or 5 in 24 months. But until they pay those tickets, there's no convictions, there's nothing on their record. And if a ticket is not paid, it doesn't go on their record. So I think we need to really take a close look at this. And I do have an amendment that I am be bringing up to talk about. But
I'm going to have the prosecutor ask us, what should we do with these people that continually refuse to pay their fines?
City Attorney Hagan, if you can answer this question, I do want to get to your amendment, whoever is offering that amendment. We still do have two members that have questions. Members, if we're not done with our agenda today, we will be recessing and reconvening at 5 PM in room 300 South. But City Attorney Hagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. We have that problem now. Without this bill, whether you pass this bill or not, that problem exists. And it doesn't exist just for driving offenses. In Hennepin County, they decided that we needed to look at and clean up old warrants. So last year, I was sent a list of no less than 50,000 misdemeanor offenses of all sorts that are in warrant status for the last 5 years. And they said, what do you want to do with those? And they were everything from serious offenses, people on warrant status on a DWI, to a consuming in public, to a driving after revocation. And there were certain offenses I looked at and said, well, this is 5 years old, and on my scale of, what really impacts public safety, I said, we just need to dismiss them. What am I going to do if this person comes in and 5 years later, I don't even know if the officer's still on the force? We have that problem right now. So this bill is not going to make that problem better. It's not going to make it worse. But the benefit that we're going to do to people that are in this spiral that's been talked about is far outweighed by that group of people that right now are doing nothing and just taking their chances of never getting picked up on their warrant or that. I don't know what we do to bring people into court so that we can hold them responsible for any level of offense. But that problem exists all throughout the state, throughout the country, and passing or not passing this bill is not going to change that. There are just some people that frankly just don't care about the laws, think they don't apply, and they're just going to do their thing until they get caught and are forced to deal with it. But the number of people, what I found, especially, working with the driving diversion program, one of the things I really was surprised about is when given the chance to be accountable and try to do the right thing, a lot of people really want to do that. They just need to be able to do it in a way that makes sense for them financially. And that is often a payment plan. For some people, a payment plan of $10 a month is a meaningful payment plan. It's all they can afford. And I really think that the majority of the people want to be responsible, and they want the system to work with them so that they can be responsible, take accountability. Everybody makes mistakes, and you shouldn't have this lifelong 5 or 6 year struggle for one mistake that you made. I mean, who hasn't gotten a ticket? I've gotten several tickets. I mean, it happens. It's life. And so while I understand your concern, I really encourage you and other lawmakers not to focus on that group, because they're going to exist regardless of what you do. But I think we have to look at the people that are trying to be responsible, that need some help. And I do think maybe if I had less of these cases, I might be able to, some of these offenses are payable offenses, and the way I can bring them into court is by charging by a complaint. I don't have the resources in my office to have an attorney, cranking out complaints on all of these misdemeanor offenses. But if my caseload is reduced by 20 or 30%, maybe I can look at some of these offenses, say, this is important enough, I'm going to have somebody do a complaint, we'll bring them into court that way, see if that will get them into court. So I understand the concern, but I think, this bill is going to do more benefit than harm, and those people are always going to exist regardless of what you do.
Thank you, City Attorney Hagan. I'm thinking of a couple traffic tickets over the years that I've forgotten, and I've paid more than I should have paid in the first place. I eventually caught up. I didn't pay $16,000 or had my insurance, rates skyrocket. So the collateral damages for a simple error and small misjudgment, is something that is about certain people paying the price. Representative Considine and Representative O'Neill, and then we're going to go to the amendment if someone's going to offer it. Representative Considine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Chairman Lesh, for bringing this bill. I mentioned it the other day. Tomorrow, we'll be seeing a bill that I have that will enhance the penalties for death and maiming and Ms. Jackson is not the person I want to catch or be prosecuted with that. We need to make sure that the suspensions are for people that need it and that have egregious backgrounds. So thank you for bringing this forward. Otherwise, I don't think I could bring my bill forward. One other little thing, and I know Representative Grousel, you meant this in the best possible way, and I have a daughter that would have come to me too, but we can't assume that people have the same resources that we do. That'd just be something in general for us to keep in mind. And again, I know what you're saying because, yeah, my daughter to come to me, I'd have written a check, but that's not what everybody's experience is.
That was exactly my point was, I just,
Representative Rossi.
sorry, Mr. Chair. It just baffled me, and I was just thinking about that.
Right. I understand where you're coming from.
Ask
It's
for-
just
ask
we
for
need to
help.
be careful about assuming that everybody has the same advantages.
I don't
that we
assume
do.
anything.
Representative Rossi.
I don't assume anything, Mr. Chair and Representative.
Thank you both. We do have a good committee, I have to say here, in terms of folks who are carefully trying to think through the issues. Representative O'Neill and then Representative Mulder, I did forget you, and then we'll get to the amendment if someone's going to offer. Representative O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually have a question about the actual bill. So if we can maybe return back to the bill language.
Thank you, Representative
You know,
O'Neill.
unique, let's talk about the bill. Chair Lesh, this is something that I had brought up the last time you had the bill. I love the bill. I do have concerns only because of the change that we were talking about when you're talking about reinstatement fees. And it was a change in policy, not necessarily a change in statute. And so I just bring that up again. I noticed that you didn't have an amendment. I was hoping to have something that would clarify it. Maybe I should have brought an amendment, which would have been fine too. But it's on page 5 and it's lines 5.24 through 5.26. And it really has to do more with, now that MNLARS is up and operational and they are stacking up these violations that have caused the license to need to be reinstated, I guess is the best way to say it. So it's $20 per reinstatement. And I'm wondering if maybe you want to think about, since it's really a reinstatement fee, which seems like a single action, to make it clear in statute so that instead of them paying a stacked $20 for every violation that brought that need to be reinstated, to have it be a single fee of $20 instead of a stacked fee of $20, however many times. So that's all I was going to bring up, is just something that I hope that you can clarify so we don't have yet another impediment to someone getting their license back.
Chair Lesh.
Mr. Chair and Representative O'Neill, yeah, I would like to do that. What's the path from here? I think Mr. Lundy
Chairman
just
Lesh, I
reminded me.
believe we're going to be referring this to the Committee on Transportation.
Okay, and do we know where it's going after that?
Possibly to your committee.
Oh, back
but
to me,
I
okay.
leave that to you.
So, yeah, we'll get that drafted and offered, and you're on my committee, so when it comes back, maybe we can do that. But I totally agree with you on it. Thank you.
Terrific.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to make
Representative
sure that we pointed that out, because it's, if we're really trying to make it easier for folks to get their licenses back, not because of financial hardship, that actually is a pretty big financial hardship if it's not just one single $20 fee to reinstate, but multiple. And so it was just something that sort of came up at the last hearing, kind of a surprise when we were going through the bill, just something that we should fix going forward. Thanks.
I agree, Representative O'Neill. Thank you for bringing that issue on the record. Representative Muller's, okay, so there is an A1 amendment. Is someone going to move that amendment? Representative Johnson.
Chair Mariani, that was my amendment. I don't believe I'm going to offer that amendment. There was an issue dealing with how do we deal with these people that continually don't pay their fines, continually drive speeding, recklessly endangering the public. They're going to do that whether they have a license, a valid license or a suspended license. But I think it's something that maybe we want to look at, that after X number of non-payment of fines over a certain time period, or number outstanding that have never gone to court, refused to show up in courts, maybe it was something we want to look at to put a little bit of teeth back into it, so those people that habitually do that end up in court.
Mr. Chair?
Chairman Lynch.
I did this for quite a few years, and I had the 10 to demand calendar quite a bit. from folks who were sitting in jail, couldn't afford to make bail, and were sitting in jail on a driving after suspension. It was my job. They were entitled to a trial within 10 days on a misdemeanor, and I had to try the case. And I did. I tried those cases. And these people were writ in from Hennepin County Workhouse, Ramsey County Workhouse, Crow Wing County, Coochiching County, because they were sitting there in jail on much more serious offenses. Quite frankly, in vast majority of instances, this was not even really worth their time. They were sitting in on murder. They were sitting in on kidnapping or CSC or something. So if it were up to me, in the same way that Ms. Heng has stated, I mean, get them on the big tamale. The percentage of the population that threaded that needle, who really didn't do anything worse than basic misdemeanor, scofflaw stuff, and somehow found themselves in the still cycle. It was an extremely narrow percentage of the population. And you're right, those people irritate me too. It's extremely irritating. In fact, I had a client just like that, a couple weeks ago. He paid me though, so I was less irritated with him. But you're right. It's just that we brought this in looking at the major problems associated with those folks who aren't in that position. But I see where you're coming from.
Thank you. And members, I want to thank the careful conversation that we've had, really plunging, deep into, what our intent and consequences are. And obviously, we've talked about very closely related issues. And thank you, Deputy City Attorney Heng, for laying out and painting for us, what the big picture is out there. Not on this population, really being distinctive about what, the Miss Jacksons, if you will, but also, allowing us the space to talk about the other challenges that we have. Is there anyone else that wishes to testify on this bill? If not, then Representative Lesh renews his motion that House File 1061 be referred to the Transportation Committee. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion prevails. Thank you, Representative Lesh. Thank you to the testifiers. Thank you, Ms. Jackson, Ms. Hang, and Ms. Berner.